Welcome to another episode of Life in Focus, where we dive into the world of real estate, the real life experiences, and insights from our guest. I'm your host, Ben Tate, and we're joined again for part 2 with my buddy Nate. Woo! All right, so we basically left off episode 1, just kind of rehashing, your first 3-year term in your current space at the barbershop. Basically, we know now you're 100% moving on to a better space.
Yeah.
Hopefully a better landlord situation, property management, all that good jazz. So let's talk a little bit more about the logistics of this new space. Okay. What is your I guess revised budget for this space? Are you looking for another triple net term lease? Are you looking more for maybe a full service lease where you can just say, hey, I want to know what the number is. I want to not worry about this, increasing outside of my annual escalations type thing. So are you going to split this lease with another person again? Just walk us through kind of the numbers and the budget.
Yeah, so for this next one, I am still going to be with Iron and Ink as a secondary business because it just works. There's a lot of people that come into the shop just based off of the vibe that I give for the shop. It makes sense for his apparel and everything like that, and vice versa. But revised, I could probably go, for myself, I could go to about 2,000 to 2,200 comfortably. I'm sure I could do a little bit more, especially when we get to a new spot because we're gonna have a lot more traffic coming through. But comfortably, I'd say right around the $2,000 mark for myself. Which in the end, based off of what, Jeff from Iron and Ink is going to need, now he's going to need to have an entire side for himself, which means that we're going to have to go a bigger spot. And so we have roughly, in reality, like $4,000 that we can do. So it's a significant jump from what we're paying now of the 15,
almost double
16.
at least.
Yeah. And we're both at that spot that we can do that. And because of that, I don't mind the triple net. Of course, it's always scary just because you don't know what, like the electrical problem or if there's going to be a plumbing problem and, you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that can come a big cost. I mean, it could end up being $5,000 that you have to do.
Well, so, speaking of hurricanes recently, are these hurricanes going to play a factor in your lease space, right?
Right.
Because again, if you go the triple net route, that owner is still going to have some level of insurance. We all know that higher insurance premiums are coming given 2 storms in 14 days that, $500 billion in damage between all the states impacted. So, that's probably something you want to look at when you're looking at a triple net option, because then there could be some pretty large unknowns there.
Correct. And of course, like depending on the location that you have, if it's closer to the water, you're going to get a higher premium. And so, that's where you kind of have to look at everything from like, okay, well, it's not just that I'm going up $2,000 or how much I'm willing to spend. Just because you have that, like you said, you could end up paying higher premiums for insurance. So you got to kind of cover that in the factor of what you're going to be spending monthly. So I'd say that based off of what we know now, I mean, there's a couple spots that we're looking at. Fortunately, we have a person who knows the owner of this building that, where Gigi's Pizza is.
Yep.
So there's some stuff in there that we know a guy who knows the owner. So it's good because it gives us a little bit of leeway to be able to kind of go in and ask for a better price.
Sure.
I don't even know what the price is. I'm kind of leaving it up to the guy that we know to kind of help us out with that since he personally knows him. But we're not, that's not our for sure spot.
Sure.
In the end, it comes down to everything. Like you said, like if it's a triple net or not. I don't mind going a different route. I know triple net, so I'm willing to continue that. But again, it comes down to how old is the AC in there? When's the last time plumbing was done in there? Things like that. That's a big factor in how much I'm going to have to initially spend just to get the new business going. And that's a big part of it too is, I already spent a crap ton of money getting this other place up and going. And a lot of people have asked, like, is it worth it to move? Yeah, it is, because in the end, you can, if you structure it right and you get the right spot, you can just kind of take everything you have and just kind of put it block by block inside.
Not to mention, there was no brand
right
when you moved in there. The only brand that you had was yourself, the most important brand, obviously. That's what, stimulated the idea and the growth. But, there was no broken compass.
Correct.
Right? And so now that there is broken compass, I think 3 years is a good proof of concept. I mean, some people will ask for 6 months, right? And so now I think you can move as long, because your brand's strong enough now.
Right.
You have a good website. Like you said, the socials, the Google ads. You have a full
staff.
Full staff.
Yeah.
Which is most important. So in this new space, are you looking to have more space for more staff, or do you think that's a great kind of perfect, the amount that you have is good?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back and forth. I mean, we've sat down for coffee and we've talked about like, oh, let's go back down to just 3 to 4 chairs only, because now I have 6 chairs in there, and that's with me cutting. And I already have people all the time calling and asking for jobs. And, unless I have a full book, it doesn't really make sense for me to take myself out of being behind the chair if they can't make up for what I'm putting in. So I've started getting to the point of where, for me to be able to work less behind the chair and focus more on the business aspect, I'm gonna have to have at least another, especially if our rent and everything goes up, I'm gonna have to have at least another chair in there, so that way it can kind of make up for, a couple days that I'm not working. I already only work 4 days a week. I'm trying to structure it to where I'm only working maybe 2.5 days, and have special, clientele. Don't worry, you're gonna be one of them. But special clientele that I can continue cutting, and then just kind of disperse the rest of them, which gives them my 7th barber, if they don't have a big book, it at least gives them something.
So let me ask you, speaking of, and I'm, again, just being creative here, brainstorming, real time here. Do you think you look at the timing of the hours of operation in the new space? The reason why I ask that is most barbershops are open, call it 9 to 6, 9 to 7, 8 to 7, just normal business hours, right? That means that if I want to come get a haircut and I work, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, I have to use my lunch. I have to take off time to go do that. If you position yourself in a more downtown area where you're closer to things that are open later, maybe it's a coffee shop, right? That's open till midnight.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would be open to, having a certain amount of barbers working or chairs open later so that people can come after work? Because there's not that many barbershops that are open 5 to midnight or 7 to midnight or, 5 to 10, whatever the case is.
Yeah, 100%. So, I was up in Maine a couple weeks ago because, again, I'm in that whole mindset of, moving up there. What can I possibly look into real estate wise? What's there? And the barbershops and the coffee shops, because that's what I want to eventually do, is have both of those merged together. In the end, that is what I want the end goal to be, for at least another location. I like the aspect of having an apparel and barbershop, so I want the next location that I open up to be a coffee shop and a barbershop. Give it uniqueness. So what I noticed when I was up there, and what I've even noticed down here, is that a lot of barbershops and coffee shops don't actually stay open that late. Up in Portland, Maine, they closed at 5 o'clock, which was the wildest thing to me, because, coming from Colorado where I used to live, we'd have places that were either open all night or till 12 o'clock. Yeah. That was normal. Now barbershops, the most I've ever really seen a barbershop being open till is 8 o'clock. Now there is the ability to get those people in from that 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock time. It might take a little bit longer, but it is possible to make that happen. I think that if you have enough barbers, it's a great way to structure to where, I have some barbers that they don't like working late at night. I don't like working late at night. Once the sun goes down, I'm out. I want to be at home. I want to be smoking a bowl and just vibe out. So, I like working earlier in the morning time. I have a couple other barbers that like that. So it would be nice to get enough people that, there's not where everyone's there working at the exact same time. And then you have a couple barbers that are sitting around just kind of waiting for clientele to come in if they don't have any appointments that were already booked. So it'd be good to get a couple people in the morning time just to get those early risers, and then keep a couple people, maybe 2
Yeah.
Just to
That's what I'm saying. Just kind of play with it, because I just think that like the barbershop business structure hasn't really changed. The only time there's been some changes is if there's a mobile barbershop, right? Or stuff like that. I know we've brainstormed different ideas of, cool things you could do with a business plaza, right? Where you could do a mobile thing there. Most senior housing facilities, especially if it's independent living, active adult, or even some, light assisted living facilities, right? Most of them have a third party beauty salon in them.
Correct.
It's already set up for that, right? I would say, in my experience of being in hundreds of these facilities every year, at least half, maybe a little less than half, but at least half of them are vacant. There's so much turnover. I think the reason why there's turnover is because they cater to the stylist side of things and not the barber side of things. There's not that tandem, right? But you're talking about 100 residents on average, maybe 70 to 100 residents that are in each of these facilities, right? A lot of them get to the point where the barber or the stylist, mainly the stylist, will only come in 2 days out of the week, 1 day out of the week. So that space is just vacant in there. Could be a business idea to, you could be in 10 of these different places, have access to 1,000 residents. Even if you get 10% of them, that's 100 haircuts that you get in a week just off of these, So I think that I'm always thinking of, from a business perspective, how can I have the business come to me instead of me going to the business, And give you another example of that, kind of thought process. A lot of times when people go to networking events, they might go to a conference, right? And it might be a 2-day conference, and the conference is full of different panelists, maybe, 4 different panels each day, and it's different panels talking about different topics, et cetera, right? And then you're there to listen to the information, and then in between breaks, what are you doing? You're talking to the other people that went to that conference, right? Oh, hey, are you? I'm Nate. I'm a blah, 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 whatever the case is, right? Where do you work? Where are you from? Is there a chance for us to do business together, right? You're just vetting things out. That's networking, right? Well, the people that decided to be panelists, guess what happens when they come off the stage? There's a line of 100 people waiting to talk to them. Right? So the best marketing is just go on the panel, talk for 1 hour, and then the rest of that 2-day conference, everybody that sees you in the hallway is like, oh, you're on the panel, I'm gonna come talk to you. They're coming to you, right? So they're working smarter from that perspective. And I feel like if there's a way from on the barber side of things, I know you're always gonna have the brick and mortar space, but again, that's why I think we always talked about having 2 or 3 chairs as opposed to 7, because it's like, keep the bread and butter as the thing that keeps the lights on, so to speak, that pays the bills, but then be a little bit more creative with something that can actually like compound growth,
right,
at a faster clip. Because again, I think there's just a lot of people that are just a creature of convenience right now, and driving, finding parking, especially if you're moving downtown,
right?
Driving, finding parking, the time of day, the traffic, it's very inconvenient.
Yep.
Right. But mobile barber isn't always a good option either, because not everyone wants you in their house, and you probably don't want to be in everyone's house.
Correct.
Now you got dogs and kids and germs, and maybe the mobile car or van isn't also comfortable to do a haircut in, because I know people do that.
Right.
So I don't think just the mobile aspect is the ticket.
Right.
But I do think coming up with ideas that are more convenient for a lot of people that need haircuts anyways. That's why we talk about, bridal parties or whatever, getting anything close to that. But I just think that there's something there that a lot of people aren't doing right now. Because again, people just go, most people just want to do things how they've always been done, because that's how they were taught to do them initially. Right. And I feel like you're one of the few people that can think a little bit creatively, is willing, you're one of the pull trigger people, as I say. You got to pull the trigger to try to see if it works.
Right.
And then just be quick to pivot if it doesn't, right? But I really think that these business plazas, these senior housing facilities, these are hundreds of people that are creatures of convenience, especially your business plaza. If anything you could say, hey, I got to go downstairs, or, it's kind of like the smoke break kind of thought process, right? So I don't know. I know it's easier said than done. Well, everyone has good ideas about execution.
Yeah, but I think, you're right. Like, because in the end, when COVID was going on, no one was allowed to get haircuts, and but dealerships, they stayed open. Why? Because they were essential. Because if someone's car broke down, that was a nurse, she still has to get a new car. Yep. So they were deemed essential workers. But these owners of the dealerships still wanted their guys to look presentable, and they wanted to look presentable. So that gave me the advantage. Now, watch a health inspector watch this and be like, oh, I'm gonna go and tag him now. But during that time, I went to my old dealership that I used to be a sales manager at, and 40 heads I would cut in the daytime, and it wasn't like anything major. It's like there wasn't any razoring of the neck, there wasn't any shampooing. It was just strictly get the haircut, go on to the next person.
Yep.
And it was convenient for them because they didn't have to leave the dealership. If they were in the middle of a deal that the person was in finance, so they have maybe an hour. Well, if their barber is 30 minutes away because of traffic, then it doesn't give them any time. Even if it was 10 minutes away, you got 30 minutes of a haircut, then 10 minutes of driving there, 10 minutes driving back. You're kind of rushing and making sure that like, oh, am I going to have enough time? And you're doing it on maybe your lunch break. So then you got to add in food on top of that. So it's easier for someone to just be like, hey, I'm here, and they take a chance on you. And then the convenience is everything. Back to what you said with like the nursing facilities and things like that. I used to be someone who worked in those kind of facilities, and we did have a woman that used to come in for the women. And yeah, they do the guys, but like as the older generation, I think males would appreciate that old school feeling of having another man cutting their hair, because that was kind of the thing back then.
Back then it was more of it
was a hangout.
It was a hangout.
Yeah.
So I was just going to add that piece to the convenience side. We care about convenience when there's not an emotional attachment to what we're doing. Grocery delivery is great because there's no emotional attachment to the groceries. It's just something we need, right? So if we can get it delivered, if I get Uber Eats, if I can get Amazon, Whole Food delivery or Publix delivery, Walmart Plus delivery, it's because there's no emotional attachment to going grocery shopping. It's not therapeutic for most. For most, some people get off on it. I think that's what it is for the haircut too. I think for ladies it might be a little bit different because again they're a little bit more emotional people as it is, and their hairstyling typically takes longer than guys, and so there's more of that bonding relationship where, listen, if I'm getting, if I'm a lady getting my hair done, it's like that's what's happening that day or that part of the day. It's just part of it. It's more planned. I think for guys, it's like inherently you have to book, your stylist. But I think if it was more convenient, I think a lot of people would, would pursue that.
100%. And, depending on where you're going, like let's say it is a dealership, you can charge that premium because it is the convenience that they don't have to do anything. They just walk 10, 15 feet from where they are, get in the chair, call it a day. So you have the ability to make extra money versus them just coming to your shop. So there's pros and cons to both of it. And then it's having the right people in place to be able to do that, because it is your brand that you are letting this specific person go and take over as almost like their own. So, and when you're not there to watch it, you don't know what's being said. You don't know what's being done. Not to say that I micromanage or anything. We've never really had any problems in the shop, when it comes to any barbers and clients and everything, but there's always that potential of something being an issue. And so you have to, as a business owner, you have to be like, okay, who do I have that I could put in place of being kind of like in charge of that whole thing? And how many people do I have? If I take this person out of the shop, well, okay, so now we have an influx of people coming in for walk-ins, but now we can't actually take them because, we're turning them away. And if it's their first time, I've always said this, if someone calls in and you don't have a spot for them, that right there is not actually beneficial in my eyes, because they're going to be like, okay, cool. Then, well, I was going to try it out. It looked like a cool shop, but then they go to the next shop and they're more than likely not going to try again with your shop. They could, but more than likely not, because they were able to get in on this other one and that other barbershop did an okay job. So enough to where they were satisfied. So then you lost a customer, which you might have paid for that marketing. So not only did that client pay, or the client ended up using your marketing ad that you just paid for, but they're not going to come back to you
because they couldn't get service.
So and that's not always how it is, but you have to look at it from their eyes of if it's convenient, especially if there's someone that's on the go. They're like, hey, I just need a haircut. I need someone that I know I can go to all the time.
So that brings up a good point. So that's why I think when you're doing this next lease term, you have to be very forward thinking with how you make a decision here, right?
Right.
Because once the lease is signed, the space is the space. It's not going to get any bigger, meaning that you're always going to be kind of capped at how many chairs you can actually have, right? The thing that's not going to be capped is rent escalations every year. Maybe it will be based on your term for that 3 years, let's just say. But the idea is to find something so advantageous that you want to, keep renewing for subsequent 3-year terms, 5-year terms, whatever the case is. But again, we know with inflation, the rent's going to keep going up, the insurance is going to keep going up, CAM, taxes, everything's going to keep going up, but your space isn't going up, and you're going to be capped at those 7 barbers. So either A, the haircuts become more expensive, or the services come more expensive, so to speak, or you have to have more people, right? But that's going to be, that's a tough.
It's a lot of things that are juggling around with that.
And to break that down even more, let's just break down what an average barber can generate, right? Let's say an average barber does 10 haircuts a day. Let's say the haircut costs $30 a haircut, right? Is that fair, or would you say?
Yeah, I'd say. In this area, I'd say it's probably more closer to the 40 range at this point. But for what the barbers
let's just say
make,
40 all in with tip.
Yeah, okay.
For average, right? And we talked about that too, offering services that require no tip because the tip's factored into it, which is something, different. But $40 a cut, including tip, for 10 haircuts, that's $400 a day.
Right.
But most barbers aren't going to do 10 haircuts a day, but let's just say that that's a hustler, right? $400 a day, and how many days would they work on average? 5, 6?
I'd say more like 5, 4.5 to 5, depending on the. I structure my entire shop way differently. I'm very lenient because I feel like we all need our family time and everything like that. Really, what it comes down to is if you're doing a good enough job in those 4 days, then don't work the rest of the time. That clears it up for me to maybe hire a part-time person, and then you're not getting burnt out, and then I have someone else who's hungry, and keeping it going. But yeah, I'd say on average, it's probably like 8 to 10 people a day that people.
So even if
getting.
we went on the high end with 10, but then instead of going 6 days, we did 5 days, that's $2,000 a week that they can generate, right? But then let's just say, so you're saying most of them do commission, right? Not booth rental. And what's that?
60-40.
60-40, so 40 goes to the house.
Yep.
So 40% of that 2,000 would be $800. Right. So you have 7 barbers.
Yep.
So that's $5,600 a week that you can generate.
Correct.
On average, right? So those are pretty good numbers.
It's pretty good numbers. Yeah. Yep.
So what is that? Basically $22,000 a month. Okay.
And that's like, of course it's not as black and white as that, because then you have the Google ads that you're spending.
Well, that's the product side.
Yeah. The products that you're having to do and everything like that. The towels that you're using, that you're having to have a towel company come in if you don't have a washer and dryer. So there's a lot of things that factor into.
That's not all profit.
Right.
That's just generated revenue.
Correct.
But you got to start there first.
Absolutely.
What can we even generate here? Right? So again, the interesting thing with the haircut is it's one of those things, the things that have been around the longest, right? People think that there's a cap to them, right? You're not going to be able to charge $50 for a haircut unless it comes with something else, or, you know what I'm saying? That there's a cap to what you can charge. So that's what I'm saying. It's going to be tough for you because, again, if I only have space for 7 barbers, and the max that they're going to do is 10 cuts, a day, I have 70 cuts a day that I can do. Max. Right. I can only raise my services so much. So now so this is, again, not to use a crazy parallel here, but in the senior housing community, it's the same thing, right? Where they want to raise rents every year for the same reason, so they can, keep track with inflation and, the changing economy, right? But for the adult children or for whoever's helping mom and dad in those facilities or grandma and grandpa, they're like, all they're seeing is that savings dwindle down because the rent keeps going up, right? And so what a lot of facilities now are doing is saying, hey, we'll keep the rent payment somewhat capped, so to speak, or kind of like grandfathered in, no pun intended. But we're going to charge separately for the ancillary services. So for the bathing or the medication management or the number of meals that you get or certain social activities that are bust away from the facility type thing, going to the baseball game, whatever the case is, they're finding out that people are more willing to see an increase on that once, twice a year, as opposed to seeing the rent increased, right? So I think it's gonna be the same thing with the haircut, right? If the haircut increase doesn't go up that much, but the ancillary services that come with it, or really the service, right? We go to Chick-fil-A because it has good service, not because it has the best food.
Correct.
Right? The menu's not even that big. Mm-hmm. It's just like the service that you're going to get is consistent. Same thing with Amazon. We order from Amazon because of the illusion that we can return everything.
Correct.
Even though they know that most people won't return it. A lot of people will, but most people won't, right?
Or they go to do a return and they tell you, keep the product, we'll still refund you.
Exactly.
I just had that the other day. I was like, all right.
And that's great, right?
Yeah.
So I think these are the things that if you can check some of these boxes, it'll make you recession proof. It'll make you economy proof, so to speak,
right,
with the ups and downs that come with it. Because again, I think once you have to keep raising your haircut prices or your services, around a haircut or a beard trim or whatever the case is, simply to keep pace with what you have to pay the landlord, that's where it gets tough, because that's where you're going to be having to move every 3 years, and you don't want to have to upgrade to downsize to play this game.
Well, because people are, even your most loyal customers are going to get tired of that. Because now that's in, like I said earlier, it's in their structure of what they have going on that day. If they know that, hey, I go every 2 weeks on this day because based off of the errands that I have to run that day all the time, I can go here. But then now you moved 10 minutes down the road. Well, now that's 10 extra minutes just to get there, and then 10 extra minutes to get back down that way. So you just wasted 20 minutes of their time to get the same service that they were already getting. So yeah, like you said, it comes down to what are you offering with everything. So if we stay at the same price or just increase it a little bit, we have to put something more to offer to it, like a better experience. It might just be an extra 5 minutes, but we do a quick massage.
I was just going to say, if you come in, your second visit in 30 days comes with a 15-minute back massage or shoulder massage or something.
Technically, as barbers or stylists in general, we can't do anything below the shoulders.
Well,
so that's good. Makes it easier for us.
So you ask.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, thinking about those things, right? We talked about having memberships or reward card punches, something that is a call to action to want you, to bring it back, And
it's funny you mentioned that, because I just got an email from, because we use the Square Up platform, and they just sent me something that said, we have a new way to go about it. Keep your clients with a loyalty program. And I was like, ooh, sweet, I'm going to have to look into this now that you guys have a structure for it. Because yeah, you're right. You and I have talked about this for years now, because then that gives the ability for people to potentially get a cheaper price, come in more, but you're always generating business from them, and they're not going to leave because they always know that they're going to get this deal.
Exactly. I think the way you need to think about this too is, this is you changing schools, moving houses as a kid, right? I know you're homeschooled, but the process.
Why'd you have to call me out like that?
Well, just to say that, I guess what I'm trying to imply is, when you change schools, in theory, you don't lose the friends that you had. You may not see them as much, but you still have that friend group.
Right.
So you still have the clients that are coming to your current space right now. Right? You're not going to lose them in theory. Obviously, some people might drop off inherently, but you're not losing, your clients. You didn't do anything to lose them, right?
You might just not see them as much.
Exactly. You may not see them as much. But when you change schools and you change neighborhoods, you still have the same friends, but now you have to make new friends, right? The cool thing about that is you get to reinvent yourself to some degree.
True.
Right? So it's like, you need to seize this opportunity to add some things. Like, you can't do the same thing you're doing now, not because it's not working, but just because you have the opportunity to somewhat reinvent yourself for the new demographic that you're going to be serving in this new community.
Well, and on top of that, because we're going to a new area, that means that the other barbershops, like the thing that made us so great where we are now, is there's no other barbershops that are like ours.
Right.
So, and I can't even tell you how many times I've had a new person come in, and I've heard it from the barbers that they're talking to, or people in my chair. Oh, I've been trying to find a barber in this area for so long, and there's just nothing that it looks good, nothing for my style. And so then we came along and it completely changed. That's why I believe it was a great spot for while we have had it, because it got people in that area who have been searching. I mean, we have Raymond James Financial right down the road, and we have a lot of those guys coming through. But because now we're going to be entering into an area where there are a couple more shops that are similar to our experiences and everything, well, how do we set ourselves apart from them to not necessarily take their business, but give a reason why people might want to try us out versus them? If we're offering very similar experiences, what's the difference?
Just to give some people some more information as we wrap up here, how much money do you think that they would need if they wanted to replicate what you're doing in regards to starting their own barbershop? It doesn't have to be 7 chairs, maybe it's 2 chairs, 3 chairs, but what is the minimum amount of cash required to get into some lease space, get it built out to some degree? And again, it could be a 2 chair, 3 chair, so it's not really about the size of it, but just minimally to get started, running your own shop, factoring in the cost for your LLC and getting your business bank account going and all that good stuff. What do you think, after going through it, is the minimum amount of money you need?
I'd say if it's truly the bare minimum, you just need
and you have a full book of business already.
Yeah, I'd say bare minimum to cover the fees, the legal fees and everything like that, and getting the shop going. Even if you do it yourself, you could probably get away with like $10,000 to $15,000 easily. I mean, I spent, to get to the shop that we have, I spent probably 25, 30 grand, something like that, within the first couple months of doing things. And I did a lot of the work myself.
Build out, that's getting your
and that's
Squarespace
a
account,
couple
like
months
everything's
worth
set up.
of like rent that you have to factor in. You're not going to, if you have a book of business, like I had a full book of business, and even with that, the first 2 months, I felt like I lost all of them because I'd get like 2-3 people a day. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Suddenly they all came back. So it takes that time. Even if you have a book of business, it might take them a minute to, because now they're having to restructure their entire day on how to get over there and things like that. So I'd say probably 10 to 15 is a reasonable amount. If you're doing a small shop, you're not having to go big and bold with the chairs that, like, my chairs are $1,100 a piece. You don't have to go that high. It really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But 10 to 15 is a pretty good
Okay, so you've say in the high range, 15 grand to get started. And how long should people wait until they expect to make a profit, right? Because the 15 grand to get started, then you're gonna have to make money to pay back the monthly expenses, right, for the laundry and the rent and everything else. So how patient should you be on turning a profit from the time you start? Because the reason why I ask that is there's a fine line between being patient and being complacent and comfortable with the results, right? So again, the goal is not to be able to just cover the expenses and just get by, right? So I think there's qualifying in and qualifying out of opportunities. And after a certain amount of time, if you're not making $1, you either got to change something drastically or move on, right? So what would you say is that patient period, so to speak?
I'd say, we were making profit pretty fast, just because I did a lot of the work myself and I'm a barber. But I would say, honestly, truly be patient at around 1.5 to 2 years for you to really see momentum in everything. You paid back your loans. You've made sure to get a structure for how you do the ads and everything. You've kind of gotten, because throughout the first year or two, you're adding things to the shop. And it might not seem like a lot, like, oh, it's $100 here, $200 there, but now you're decreasing your profit. So you're not actually making what you thought you were. You had a good amount, but now you have to add this in because it makes more sense versus when you first started. So I'd say in reality, somewhere around 1.5 to 2 years, you start seeing the momentum coming of profit that's generating, and you can still buy stuff for the shop and not feel like, you're, down to pennies. That would be like my thought process, just based off of what I've seen for my shop.
Gotcha. Well, this is great, man. This is all good information. I feel like being a cosmetologist, hairstylist, barber is something that a lot of people turn to almost like a real estate agent at times, as opposed as a a different career path, something they want to start on the side, something they've always wanted to do but interested in. No matter how good or bad the economy is, you need a roof over your head, you need a roof over your business in most cases, and you need your haircut. It's not going to stop growing, right? To be presentable. So it's something that's never going away. I think, again, it hasn't changed much in the course of how business is done.
Right.
So I think that's coming. But this is a really good information for anybody that's obviously interested in pursuing something on that side of things. But before we go, list us off one thing, couple things that you think, you could be doing moving forward to, be the version of yourself that you want to be.
So the version of myself that I want to be, we kind of went over it with what the next 5 years looks like. The best version of myself, I would say, is being an owner that is always in some way present. I think a lot of people lack that as business owners. They start to make the money and they end up taking a step back. No one sees them. You don't have that relationship, which means that your barbers or employees in general, whatever the business is, they don't have the same care for the business because you're not around to care about it. So I think the best version of myself could be, always staying humble and being a barber. Not necessarily cutting, but having that mental state
Don't
of
be too far replaced from where it started.
Yeah. Staying at the humbleness that I'm a barber and I just had the ability to give the platform to other people, through the network that I had. And so, yeah, I'd say the best version of myself is to just stay humble and keep going the course to help everyone else. Because in the end, if you're helping everyone else get to their goal, then you're getting to your goal.
Absolutely. I agree. Well said. Well, again, appreciate the time coming on, sharing some nuggets and some information with us. And obviously you'll be on again and we'll see where you're at. See where you're at with the new space too. So that'll be pretty cool. So once again, appreciate it, man. Look forward to seeing the continued success and hopefully for those of you out there, you took something from it. If anything, just be motivated to, focus on the thing that you want to do. If it's not, start your own barbershop. So there's going to be bumps and bruises. There's going to be a lot of learning along the way. One thing that you've talked about a lot was, relying on other people where your expertise may not be to, get the answers to the questions that you needed to get to that next step. So that's something that I took from this interview is just, if I don't have the answers, don't be scared to reach out to somebody that may have those answers, pick their brain, pick their mind, get their perspective on something. The more minds involved, the better when it comes to brainstorming, a creative way forward sometimes. So once again, I appreciate it, man, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
All right, brother.